Gretchen, could you lead us in the flag salute?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Announcements, Lucy?
Sure.
Peggy?
I have one announcement. There is a spring clothing drive on May 16th. The Westfield High School PTSO will be collecting clothing, towels, comforters, and other household items in a spring clothing drive in the Westfield High School parking lot, adjacent to Raw Way, on Saturday, May 16th from 9 to 12. The WHS Student Council will be hosting a car wash on May 16th also from 10 to 2. The car wash will be in the parking lot adjacent to Rawway Avenue. Tickets are $5 in advance and $7 on May 16th, the day of the car wash.
Okay, and congratulations to Jorge Ledesma, who has been selected a semifinalist in the 2015 Presidential Scholarship Competition. He's among 565 semifinalists who were chosen from 3,000 candidates. Jorge entered the Westfield Public Schools in middle school when he moved here from Columbia. Since entering Westfield High School, he has taken 11 advanced placement classes, wow, possibly more than any other student in WHS's history. He's a National Merit Scholarship finalist, has won several Merck Science Awards for achievement in biology and physics, and has been recognized by one of the most prestigious writing institutions in the country, the Scholastics Arts and Writing Awards, as one of the top young writers in the country. He's also a member of the award-winning Model UN and Youth and Government Clubs. Jorge volunteers at the Children's Specialized Hospital as a mentor. His school counselor, Jacqueline Gagliardo, has remarked that Jorge is successful in every discipline. She describes him as a scientist, a politician, a math scholar, and a writer. His articles can be read in the local alternative press. Jorge hopes to become a Supreme Court justice with an aim to write about the underrepresented, the strangely beautiful, as he puts it. Jorge will be attending Harvard University in the fall, no surprise, where he will pursue a major in government, political science, and philosophy, with a minor in creative writing. Wow. We wish him continued success in all his endeavors. Congratulations, Jorge. What an accomplishment. Wow.
Westfield High School is a finalist in the Prevention Links Public Service Address Contest. Now the school needs your votes to win. Prevention Links, a nonprofit organization which takes leadership role in the prevention of drugs, alcohol, and tobacco and related issues, has posted the finalists to its annual PSA contest. Please visit www.preventionlinks.org/PSA and vote for number 5. The PSA, starring senior Joey DeRosa, shows how the decision to drink or not to drink can influence the future. The video is produced by Ari Van, Joey DeRosa, Isabel Otis, and Cece Fountain Jardim. Please note, make sure you click on the button underneath the video number 5, not the one above it. And the contest ends in 2 weeks. You can vote every day.
You go to everybody's house and help them. Congratulations to Westfield High School senior Patrick Eslanian, who signed a national letter of intent this week to play boys lacrosse for Georgetown University. Eslanian, a captain on the Westfield High School varsity lacrosse team, has been described by Coach Patrick Toohey as an extremely talented player on offense and defense who has become a great leader during his career. He went on to say, quote, "Patrick is one of those kids that performs on and off the field. His acceptance to Georgetown speaks to his academic ability and his success on the field, and is definitely reflective of his work ethic. I would say that he has defined what it means to be a team player and a leader. He's one of the first kids to take a younger player under his wing and help them out, and he sees the big picture when it comes to being a member of a team. Congratulations."
Very nice.
Congratulations to Westfield High School sophomore Alexandra Jackman, who was named one of 10 Hasbro Community Action Heroes for making an extraordinary mark on the world through service. More than 400 nominations for the award were received. Each hero receives a $1,000 educational scholarship and a $500 grant to their selected nonprofit. According to Hasbro, the 10 service leaders, ages 6 to 17, have made a difference both in their hometown communities and across the world through hands-on service projects that create awareness for important social issues. Alex, the only winner from New Jersey, was recognized for the video she created on autism awareness. Alex also recently won the Emerging Filmmaker Award at the Queens International Film Festival. So congratulations to her.
Congratulations to Mary Keller, social studies teacher at Westfield High School, who was one of the key speakers at the New Jersey State Bar Foundation's annual law-related education conference on May 1st. Her presentation focused on ways to teach about the Supreme Court with a focus on current cases from the 2013-2014 term. She utilized methods and strategies that she learned from Street Law's Supreme Court Summer Institute, George could teach that, I guess, for teachers, which she attended last June. Congratulations.
This is an announcement for our fine arts supporters. The Westfield High School bands, in collaboration with Edison Intermediate School and Roosevelt Intermediate School, will present their 4th annual Jazz Night. The theme is Jazz Under the Stars on Friday, May 1st at 6:30 p.m. This event is open to the entire community and will feature performances by 6 bands, including the Jazz Ensemble and Stage Band from Westfield High School, as well as the Edison and Roosevelt Jazz Bands. A casual jazz club atmosphere will be set in Westfield High School courtyard for this special evening, complete with individual seating closer to the stage and tables for socializing in groups. Snacks and desserts as well as soft drinks will be served. In the event of rain, the performance will be moved inside to Cafeteria B. For ticket reservations and more information, please contact Chris Vitale, Director of Bands, at his Westfield email, which is cvitale, that's C-V-I-T-A-L-E, at westfieldnjk12.org. And that is Jazz Under the Stars, Friday, May 1st at 6:30 p.m.
All right, the next Board of Education meeting will be held on Tuesday, May 5th. It will take place in the Jefferson Elementary School auditorium, where we will honor 5th grade teacher Kareem Thompson, this year's recipient of the Westfield Rotary's Phil Hauer Fellowship. The meeting will begin at 7 p.m. Later in the meeting, we will recognize student athletes who have achieved statewide distinctions this school year. With that, we'll move to the public hearing on the 2015-2016 budget.
Okay, so tonight we are finalizing our budget for 2015-16. As you know, we've been talking about the budget for a number of months, and we're now at that last stage. So the goals that we used when developing this year's budget, we wanted to maintain all of our programs at the level of excellence that they are currently at. We wanted to maintain our class sizes to the way they are in the current school year. We've had a technology commitment for the last several years in our budget, and we wanted to continue our commitment to that and have that as a priority. And we also wanted to deliver a responsible budget to the taxpayers. We also have a cap that we're mandated to stay under by the state, and we are submitting a budget that is within that state cap. So, as I mentioned, we've been talking about the budget for a number of meetings. Administration has been talking about the budget since September, literally the first meeting that administrators and supervisors had in September. But the board and the public has been part of these discussions since January. And there's a calendar just showing the numerous times we've presented the budget, and all of our information has been online as well. And Thursday of last week, our budget was advertised in the Westfield Leader as required by the state. So some key elements of this budget. We're continuing support for our academic program to the same level as we currently have, as I mentioned earlier, and our athletics and fine arts programs. Strengthening our commitment to technology, maintaining quality programs at all levels. We're reducing our reliance on fund balance as a revenue, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a future slide. And maintaining our tax levy increase within the state guidelines. So the state, the tax levy, actually I'll talk about tax levy when it comes up in the next slide. So over the last number of years, our enrollment has grown quite a bit. Back in 1990, we had about 4,300, a little more than 4,300 students. And now we're at just under 6,300. These are in-district students, so just school students that are housed in the schools in Westfield, not special ed pupils that are in out-of-district placements. And we are expecting that level to stay about the same for next year. So our staffing hasn't changed too much for next year because we have stable enrollment expectations. So our revenue. Our total operating budget is $97.6 million for the 15-16 year. As you can see, the majority of our revenue is from local tax levy. It's about 94% of our budget. Our state aid, our basic state aid has stayed level at the $2.9 million level. That's actually been the same number for several years. Our extraordinary special aid, we're expecting to reduce to $975. We don't yet have those numbers from the state officially. We won't have those until the end of next year. So we're actually basing that on last year's revenue because we don't even have 14-15 actual number at this point. So we're basing that on last year's revenue of $981. Special ed Medicaid revenue is revenue that we receive from the federal government for students who qualify for Medicaid. So our fund balance, we are able to keep 2% of our operating budget as a fund balance to be used for emergencies or for future use. We are maintaining that 2% level. Anything in addition to that fund balance, that 2% must be used as revenue. So in the past couple of years, we've been using $1.4 million as a revenue to reduce tax levy. Since we don't expect to have that fund balance available in future years to that same level, the board made a conscious decision to start reducing that amount. So in the 15-16 year budget, we're using $1 million as revenue, and then the remaining $459,000, which is the amount over the 2% we're allowed to hold, will be transferred into a maintenance reserve account, and that can be used in future years for facilities, required maintenance to facilities. And then our other areas of revenue are things like building rentals, interest income, student activity fees, and we have an increase in there because of some tuitions that we're receiving for students that we're sharing the cost with other districts, as well as some building rental increases in there. So our state aid, I said that we were staying at the same level as the 14-15 school year, but it's still less than 4% of our total budget in state aid. And so you can see by this slide, not that we ever received a tremendous amount of money from the state, but at least it was up closer to 10%, 8.3%. And now we've been hovering at the 4% level for the last several years. And then back in 2010, when many districts were hit with a drastic reduction in state aid, it was less than 2% of our budget. The special ed extraordinary aid that I showed, this year's budget we were projecting $1 million, and next year's budget we're projecting $975,000. We wanted to just show what that number really should look like. So this is a part of the funding formula that allows districts to get state aid for special ed costs that are what the state considers extraordinary. So for in-district pupils, that's over $40,000 a year, and for out-of-district pupils, it's over $55,000 a year. And there's a formula that calculates, and it's not 100% of those costs, it's various percentages depending on the type of cost. So when we did our calculation and our application for 2013-14, we should have received, per that formula, $1.5 million. We actually received $981,000. So this is also why it's hard for us to project this amount, because even though we have an application that we do, doesn't really give us a good feel, because they don't always fund that application. They never fund it to the 100%, but we don't know what the percentage will be usually.
Oh, so it's not it's a percentage of the total extraordinary aid cost. So it's not the entire. It's not 100%. It's not that the statute calls or whatever calls for 100%, and they just choose to give us something less. It's just
Well, yes, pretty much. Yes. The statute says that by the calculation, $1.5 million is what we would be eligible for. And then the state says, but we don't have the money to do that, so we're gonna fund that to whatever the percentage is.
And that's
75%.
different every year.
Yes.
But to your first point, the calculation, the formula that Dana referred to is actually built in to come up with this 1.5 million expectation for what we're owed. So it's not the actual cost of the out-of-district placement. There is a formula that says for a certain placement in a private school, you get a certain reimbursement over a threshold amount. For a placement in a public school, you get a certain amount over a threshold. But that's all taken into account. So we're owed the amount, and the state just says, well, we can't give it to you, but we'll give you something.
That's also what they do with our basic state aid, because there's a formula with our basic state aid that if you calculate out how it's very complicated, but you can calculate it out, and it would not say $2.9 million if you did that calculation.
Right, and then
But
they
just say, we'll hold you harmless because we don't want to cut aid to everybody, so they just hold everybody harmless for years, is basically what happens.
I don't know if holding us harmless is really the appropriate term to use.
Hostage, maybe?
That's the term they use.
Okay, all right, thank you for explaining.
So the tax rate impact, our current tax rate is 4.81 for the operating budget. That's going to increase to 4.97 for next year. It's a 3.2% increase on the tax levy. And our debt service is going from 15 cents to 17 cents. So a homeowner that has a house that's at the average assessed value is going to see a $314 increase for the school budget. And so this chart shows the expenditure side of the budget and how it's broken out. The largest part is instruction, as it should be. Just want to point out that if you really add up all the parts that are instructional, it comes to just about 75%, because CST-related services and extraordinary services are all student-based costs. So those are your child study team, occupational therapists, physical therapists, behaviorists, paraprofessionals for students. Also athletics, of course, are for students, and co-curricular is for students, and health guidance and library are all our nurses, counselors, and librarians. So if you add all those up, I think it's roughly just under 75% of our budget is for instruction. And our cost per pupil, this is data that we received from the state of New Jersey. They take audited data from every district in the state and calculate what they call a comparative cost per pupil. So there's a couple of different things that are taken out of the total cost. One of them being out of district special ed costs because they're not comparable from district to district. Our cost for the 12-13 year, which is the most recent data we have from the state, was $12,662. And you can see there's a number of other districts that we've compared to were lower than many of them. And the state average for districts similar to us, so that's K-12 districts with over 3,500 students, the state average is 14,173 for those type of districts. So we're well below that average, and of course we're in the northern part of New Jersey where our salaries are higher than many of the states down south. Districts down south, not states. And that concludes our presentation. Are there any questions?
Let's get another special ed question. I'm just curious, Ginny, you may have a sense of it too. If you just took that piece of the pie, and over the course of the last 5 to 10 years, it gets bigger every year? It pretty much has always been the same?
It hovers around 25%,
Yeah.
20
Yeah.
in the 20s.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Quick question, on the 459,000 that was reduced and moved to capital account? That can't go, right, maintenance, I'm sorry. That can't go to an operating line, right?
No.
The whole point of it is to take it out of the budget?
Right, it could only go in an operating line if we increased the tax levy.
Right.
Back. I mean, not the tax levy, if we increased the amount supporting the budget to $1.4 million.
Right.
If we had left that at $1.4 million.
Because otherwise the tax levy would go above 2%, which we can't do.
No, I said tax levy wrong. If we used $1.4 million for the operating budget,
Right.
we could put that 459 in an expense. But the problem with that is in 16-17, we don't think we're gonna have $1.4 million to use as a revenue.
Right.
So we didn't wanna see that reduction.
Right, you need, yeah,
Right.
okay. Anybody else? All right, thank you. Mark?
Okay, so,
Oh, I'm sorry, before we do that, just I want to recognize the public for any questions specific to the budget presentation for the 2015-2016 school year. All right, seeing no one come to the podium, Mark.
okay, so I'd like the board to consider the motion to vote on the budget hearing for the 2015-2016 school year. Second?
Second.
Mitch, thank you. Comments? Questions? I have a quick statement that I'd like to read. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Dolan and Dana Sullivan and the many others within our district who participated in the creation of the 2015-2016 budget. The preparation of our budget requires input from central staff, administrators, teachers, and parents. Once this input has been assembled, decisions have to be made that will allow us to stay within the means that we have to run the district. I believe that the budget before us tonight has allowed us to maintain the strong programs that we have historically offered, and it allows us to continue to plan for the future. Our annual operating budget, as you just heard from Dana, has a state-enforced cap of 2% over the prior year with some adjustments. One of those adjustments is called a health insurance waiver, which allows us to exceed the 2% cap by the value of this waiver established by the state because of the continuing increases in health insurance premiums. The state presently does not support us with a waiver for the increasing costs of special education. These costs are increasing at a far faster rate than the 2% cap that we must live within, causing an even more challenging budgeting process. We will be working with our local legislators in the coming days to voice our concerns about these rising costs and the stress they put on our budget. As members of the board, I believe that we are the stewards of the future of our school district. There were many before us that planned for the future, and our strong performance today is a tribute to the effort that prior administrations and boards displayed. Our district is comprised of 11 buildings with an average age of 75 years. These buildings require constant upkeep so that we can provide a safe and secure environment for our children. Unfortunately, our operating budget cannot fund all of the needs of our facilities. Capital improvements have historically been supported through the sale of bonds, and the residents of Westfield have been longtime supporters of the continued investment in our schools. This board, led by the Facilities Committee, maintains a 5-year rolling plan of the various capital improvements that we will need to make. Some are small, but many are large and expensive and can only be funded as part of a bond issuance. The Finance Committee, which I chair, will be working in the coming months with facilities and the full board and the administration to determine when and for which of our capital needs we will need to consider a bond issuance. We will provide more information to you as it becomes available. Should you have any questions in the interim, you're more than welcome to email me at mfriedman, F-R-I-E-D-M-A-N, at westfieldnjk12.org. Our town continues to be an attractive place for new families to move. Realtors always tell us that the schools are what bring these new families to Westfield. We are what we are because of our support that our residents show when asked to fund the schools. And we thank you for your continued support. Any other questions, comments? Dana?
Rich Matesic.
Yes.
Lucy Biegler.
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Peggy Oster.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
That's it?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Would then recognize the public for agenda items only. All right. See no one come to the podium, I would ask the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on April 14, 2015, and the private minutes of April 14, 2015. Can I have a second? Jenny, thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we'll move to personnel. Mark?
I'd like the board to consider personnel items 1 through 12 with number 7 as amended at your table. Second? Ginny, thank you. Questions, comments? Dana, please.
Rich Matesic.
Yes.
Lucy Biegler.
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Okay, yep. Yep.
Gretchen
yes.
Olig.
Yes.
Peggy Oster.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
So what's the update?
All right. Anything else, Mark?
No. Ginny, there was a position.
I think there were some unfilled positions, right?
There was a position that had been filled on the original that's no longer filled. It was a
Okay.
resignation.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Facilities, I would ask the board to consider facilities. Motion one, the only motion. Motion one.
Second.
Thanks, Mitch. So this is about the renovation to the instrumental music room at Westfield High School. Dana, would you mind just giving us a little overview on that?
Sure.
Thanks.
So we've been talking about this for months, administration as well as facilities committee. The band director and the supervisor of fine arts had talked to us about the band room at the high school with an issue that the decibel levels are a little too loud in there with the number of students because they have more students than they had in the past. So we've been working trying to find a solution, and we had a number of different solutions, none of them inexpensive, but some of them very expensive. So we think the most efficient way to correct the problem is we're going to reallocate staff at the high school so that we can use that room every period of the day, which will enable us to have less children at a time in the room, which will certainly help. And then what this resolution is doing is approving submission to the state for approval to remove the risers that are in the room. So the room currently has risers in there which make it less high, the height of the room lower. So we're gonna remove those risers so the room will be higher, and then we're also gonna purchase acoustic tiles to put on the ceilings and the walls. And the supervisor of fine arts has assured us that it's a long-term solution, because that was part of our concern, that we didn't wanna do renovations that were costly that were not gonna solve the problem long-term. But her and the band director both feel, and our architect, of course, has been involved in the discussions. So this will allow us to submit the application to the state, and once we have approval to go forward, we'll go out to bid for these projects. It will get done hopefully this summer. It probably won't be done for September, but Dr. King and Chris Vitale are aware of that, and we'll make adjustments if it's not done in September.
Permission from the state financially?
No. We need their approval just to go ahead with doing renovations to the building, but there's no financial assistance.
Why
on
is
this.
that? I'm just curious.
Oh, we're required to have state approval for any projects that we do, yeah,
Didn't know that.
yeah.
And this is thought to be now a long-term solution.
Yes.
With over years.
Oh, yes.
And just in terms of the band room, there's some additional consideration being given to some staffing changes, correct? To maybe, although it's not in the budget to hire an
Right.
assistant director, but hopefully to give him some more support in the classroom.
Right, there's gonna be reallocations of staff, is my understanding, at the high school, from other areas into that area.
Correct.
I just want to thank the Facilities Committee for making this a priority and doing this. I think this is excellent. A real nice commitment to the arts. I think it's wonderful.
The thanks really goes to Dr. King, who led us to this conclusion through her willingness to accept that this decision could be used in the long term. So we thank her for really stepping up to this.
Yeah, she came to facilities almost 2 years ago with a problem, and then came back several times with additional solutions until she came up with one that we could fund. So,
All right, Dana?
Rich Matesic.
Yes.
Lucy Biegler.
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher.
yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Peggy Oster.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
That's it for facilities, long-range planning, Jean?
Yes, long-range planning is scheduled for a meeting Friday, May 15th, 8 a.m., and we look forward to hearing the results of the community survey that was taken in February. That the outcome of the survey will help us form the basis of our conversations for the strategic plan that we hope will have a planning committee maybe in November or so, October, November of the fall. We'll also hear some conversation about some of the school enrollments and see if we need to do any further analysis on school enrollment data.
Very good. Policies, Lucy.
Okay, a few things. One, I just wanted to say we met a couple weeks ago and we had a code of conduct committee meeting with the student council presidents and the student council secretaries and some principals and counselors and parents of the community and board members. And I think it went really well. I know it shed a lot of light on me, having especially the students there and hearing the students and the teachers' perspective and adding to giving us some suggestions and things that work or things that we could tweak or for code of conduct policies, and it was really a good meeting.
And we got a lot of different viewpoints, and I thought it was very illuminating.
Yeah.
Kind of put it all in context.
Absolutely.
It was excellent.
Absolutely. So we're meeting again tomorrow, again, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And also, if I can just have approval for a second reading for the following policies that were attached. 1310, appointment of Business Administrative Board Secretary, and 1581, victim of domestic or sexual violence leave. Can I have a second? Jenny? Any questions on any of them? Okay, Dana?
Rich Matesic.
Yes.
Lucy Biegler.
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
And also, the board affirms the superintendent's decision on HIP incidents 15E06 and 15E07, 15E08, 15R05, 15WA04, and 15WA05 for the reasons set forth therein. Any questions on those? Can I have a second on that? Jenny?
Rich Matesic.
Yes.
Lucy Biegler.
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
That's it? All right. Curriculum, instruction, and programs.
I would like to ask the board to consider SIP item 1 to approve the district field trips per attachment 5. Can I have a second, please? Ginny, thanks. Sorry. Does anybody have any questions? Okey doke. Dan?
Rich Matesic.
Yes.
Lucy Biegler.
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
I think we need to join the French.
SIP committee, we have 2 meetings this month because of, we missed one. And so just make sure to check your blue notes. Since we're such a small committee, it's important that as many of us that can be there can be there. I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Finance, Mark.
I'd like the board to consider finance items 1 through 13. Lucy, second. Thank you. We have a couple of gifts I'd like to acknowledge. We'd like to accept a gift of $84 from the Westfield Coalition for the Arts to the Music Department of Jefferson and McKinley Schools to purchase 10 cello end pin anchors. Also accept a gift of $100 from the Westfield Coalition for the Arts to Westfield High School to pay for a master class fee for the concert choir. Also accepting a gift of $3,300 from the Westfield Coalition for the Arts to Westfield High School for the purchase of the aforementioned acoustic ceiling tiles for the band room. And then finally accept a gift, and not but least, a gift of $31,740 from the McKinley School PTO to purchase 30 desktop computers with monitors, Wi-Fi network cards, a Hewlett-Packard laser jet printer, and a Cisco access point with installation. So thank you to everyone. Any questions? Dana?
Rich Matesic.
Yes.
Lucy Biegler.
Yes.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
That's it, sir.
Thank you. Legislation, Brendan.
We have a meeting coming up on the 6th. We'll be addressing school funding formula and probably special ed funding as well.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna try to at least.
Technology Committee report, Mitch.
No report tonight.
Thank you. I'd ask the board to note the notes for the record.
Good.
Any unfinished business? Any new business? Any liaison reports? All right, I would then recognize the public again for questions and/or comments on any topic. Okay, seeing no one come to the podium, do we need to go back into private session?
We do.
Yes.
We do. So I would ask the board to approve the following resolutions. Resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purpose of discussing matters rendered confidential by state and federal law, personnel, pending or anticipated litigation, and pending or anticipated contract negotiations. And be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential, and the results of the discussion will be made public as soon as practicable. Could I have a second? Thank you, Ginny. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, we are in private session.